Welcome to a special Saturday afternoon update on your Texas Longhorn football team here on Orangebloods Live. I'm Jeff Ketchum. No Anwar, no Rod Bayers, no Chad Hastings today. You get little old me. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I've got to close down my own YouTube. I'm doing a thing that Chad did the other day where he actually had YouTube playing on in the background. So unprofessional of me. It's pulled a Chad. It's now a verb, if you will. Like the video, subscribe to the channel despite my malfunction, and by all means get notifications so that every time we do one of these shows, you're right there for the action. We'll start things out today. And oh, by the way, this will be interactive as well. I've got some topics to discuss in today's update that center on Colin Simmons, the five-star recruit that kind of dominates the world of conversation right now, as well as a few UT football talking points from yesterday's third practice. I'll take questions. We'll get interactive. I will take your super chats. We will do all of those things. Let's start with Colin Simmons, the edge rusher out of Duncanville, five-star player, number one prospect in the state of Texas. And quite frankly, no matter what Texas does out of state, it feels like Colin Simmons is rightly or wrongly going to define a lot of what this 2024 recruiting class for the Longhorn program turns out to be. It feels like a lot of weight to put onto one recruitment, and yet it's at a position of need. He's the number one player in the state. The Longhorns haven't signed a prospect quite like this in a really long time. And an interesting development. So I guess before we get into the developments, let's lay out the lay of the land. In the event that you missed any of the shows that I've done over the course of the last couple of days where we've talked about Colin Simmons and what's happened, let's just lay out where we are. And then I'll give you the update today that's kind of a potential mini twist on our way to August 10th. So keep in mind that when we talk about the Colin Simmons recruitment, for much of the beginning part of the year, the expectation was that LSU was the number one team and that Texas was kind of a team that in a program had his eye. You would see him do interviews and he would say things like, why not stay in the state of Texas to play football? And he would say, why not play for the flagship university at the University of Texas? There was a lot of why not when it was relating to Simmons and the University of Texas. So you always felt like the Longhorns were going to be a team that challenged LSU. We get to the late part of the spring, start to get the vibe that maybe Texas is catching up on LSU. Maybe this is a 1-2 battle between these two schools. It won't be Alabama. It won't be Georgia. It won't be Ohio State. It won't be Texas A&M. It'll be LSU and Texas for Simmons. Then we get to the beginning part of June, and it feels like this might actually be a 50-50 affair. When Simmons takes his official visit to Texas that weekend in late June, the feeling was that the Longhorns completely swept him off his feet. And what may have been a 50-50 entering the weekend now turns into the Longhorns not only have a lead, but maybe even a silent commitment. There was discussion that he might commit first week of July, second week of July, third week of July. And then the feeling was, well, maybe he'll push this into early August. But the feeling all along inside the Texas program was that they had their mittens all over Colin Simmons, that visit to Austin in June was so paramount that the sense you were getting from LSU is maybe they may not even hang in for this recruitment for the long haul. Maybe this is just he's going to Texas and it's obvious. He takes that visit to LSU this past weekend, and there's just no getting around the fact that it has served as a game changer. It reminded him of what he liked about LSU in the first place. I think there's a real affinity for the city of Baton Rouge. It might not be out of line to say that all things being equal, Colin Simmons likes Baton Rouge more than Austin as an environment and a town and a city. I think LSU connected on some punches with regards to creating doubt in his mind about the scheme that he would play in under Pete Kwiatkowski and Kwiatkowski's ability to turn him into, say, a first-round draft pick. You start landing these little blows. He leaves LSU. Initially, at the early part of this week, the sense was hard to know exactly how big of an impact it had. By the time we get to Wednesday, you really start to get a sense, oh, wow, it was an impactful visit. Some people on the LSU side of things, certainly on the media side, suggesting that LSU's taking the lead for Simmons. Texas sourcing, at least my Texas sourcing, admitting that LSU has turned this into real hand-to-hand combat, but yet feeling that the Longhorns still have the edge and will still be the decision, although no mortal lock, no 85%, nothing like that. Like, there's a sense, I think, from my Texas sourcing that they believe they're going to get Colin Simmons. But even as recent as earlier this morning, I got a text message and it was like, yo, no idea how the last 4 or 5 days of this plays out. That's with me feeling confident, but also acknowledging this recruitment may be tricky to completely handicap. And that's kind of where we are, right? We're at the situation where I think most of, you look at all of the Texas media outlets, right? Whether you're talking about Orangebloods, whether you're talking about Inside Texas 24/7 with Chip Brown and the crew. I don't mean to give shout outs to every one of our competitors, but you add up all the various media outlets talking about Colin Simmons, the sense that's been relayed back to me from people who are on all three sites is that the information is pretty similar, that what I'm reporting with regards to Texas being the presumed favorite, even in a closer battle with LSU than expected, certainly a week ago. It seems like everybody's kind of reporting the same thing, that Texas still the favorite, but you got to keep an eye on LSU. And, oh, by the way, one of the elements of this decision, not everybody in the family on the same page with regards to where Colin should go to school. I think some people like Texas. I think some people like LSU. It has caused some of this murkiness. Now, something that I heard in the last 48 hours and that we were able to get confirmed yesterday when we tease on this video, Colin Simmons twist. Let me give you the twist, the potential twist. About in the last 48 hours, I got word that the number one prospect in the class of 2025, Decorian Moore, my number one guy on my Lone Star recruiting rankings, I think Rivals has him 6th or 7th in the country right now. Overall, he is just a sensational wide receiver prospect. Last week, he made a really cryptic tweet with regards to Caden Durham, the running back at Duncanville, who also accompanied Colin Simmons to LSU last weekend. They were both joking about announcing what date they were going to make their college decisions on, which we now know is August 10th. They were joking about announcing that on August 1st, and Decorian Moore jumps in and makes this comment, I think on like July 29th, that he might just follow them with a commitment. And I saw it last weekend and I kind of went, what does that mean? A couple of days later, I get intel that suggests that Decorian Moore is considering announcing his college commitment also on August 10th. And if he doesn't announce, or if he does announce on August 10th, the commitment wouldn't be for Texas. AKA, if Moore commits on August 10th, it would be to LSU. Now, we reached out to some sourcing yesterday with knowledge of Moore's recruitment, and that sourcing confirmed that Moore is considering announcing a commitment on August 10th. Nothing is locked in. Sounds like there's at least as good a chance that he won't announce on August 10th as the possibility that he might, but more might announce on August 10th. It's certainly on the table. If he announces on the 10th, there's a sense that Durham will announce for LSU, Moore will announce for LSU, and then Simmons would be in a position to make his announcement, where if he goes to LSU, it's 3 for 3. Otherwise, it's 2 for LSU and 1 for Texas. But all of these announcements are coming on the same day. And sorry, my nose itches a little bit. And it, we were all, if I wasn't doing a show and we were all just hanging out at the bar and someone said that 3 guys from the same high school are all going to make their college announcements on the same day at the high school, and that they all are recruited by one school in particular, is in their top, each of their top 2s at a minimum. And we knew that 2 of the 3 were going to one school. If we were just sitting around shooting the bull, no camera on me, no YouTube. If we were just going to say, 2 of these guys are going to LSU, the other guy is looking at LSU or Texas, that feels ominous for Texas, right? I think we would all agree in private, if pride wasn't kicking in, that would be something that you'd have to you certainly couldn't be surprised. We can't get to the 10th and those 2 guys potentially announce for LSU, and then if Simmons does it, we all can't clutch our pearls and go, oh my God, I never saw that coming. No, we're 5 days out. I'm laying out in front of you the possibility, like, there are things that could happen, and if they do happen, you can't be caught off guard. My sourcing, my best source, I'm not bullshitting you guys at all. My best recruiting source, single best recruiting source. As far as I know, this recruiting source has never led me wrong. In fact, when I get into trouble is when I go around this particular source for information. When I stick with this source, I'm usually golden. This particular source is telling me thinks it's going to be Texas. He feels confident about the situation. Admits there are some LSU wild cards in play, including Simmons may be telling both LSU and Texas the same thing, that at this point he's going to both of those schools. He hasn't had the heart yet to indicate to one of the 2, either you're losing or you've lost. There's a lot going on. So that's where we are with Colin Simmons. If you ask me today, my future cast remains with Texas. My future cast probably remains with Texas a little stronger today than it did a couple of days ago. However, we just can't be surprised if this goes LSU's way. We can't be surprised if at the end of the day, he might be telling Texas one thing, he might do something else. Now, it is important to say with respect to Colin Simmons, and I'm going to take some comments and questions here in a second. Paxton, I see you. We'll get to that. It's not a coin flip, but it's not a James Harden free throw percentage either, because even the source that I have that is confident at this moment, I don't know how to handicap his confidence. And there's just a lot of things in play here. The factor that people want to make this about NIL, and it's not. This decision won't be made on NIL. This decision will be made about where Colin Simmons wants to play football, where he wants to live, and where he's most comfortable. Seriously. There's a lot. At the end of the day, I really believe that is how this decision will be made. The problem with Texas is that he likes Baton Rouge. He likes the LSU program. He likes the environment there. He also likes all of those things at Texas. That's why this is suddenly a decision. And going to Baton Rouge last weekend was a reminder of the reasons why he liked Baton Rouge. And you can officially say that the visit that he took to Austin back in June, some of those feelings got washed away a little bit with the feelings that he had at LSU. And oh, by the way, Caden Durham's probably going to end up at LSU. There's a chance that Moore, who previously has looked like a strong Texas lean. You asked me a week ago where I thought DeCorian Moore was going to go to college, and I have believed it's Texas all the way. And that he could go to LSU last weekend and now emerge potentially leaning to LSU. That kind of caught me off guard. All right, let's go to the chat here. Brazar10 says, remember me? Not exactly. Hold on here. Sorry, I'm having some problems. Why is it not popping up? Blake, if you're doing anything, stop. I'm not accusing you. I'm just having some weird stuff going on. Remember me, just joined OB. Yes, I do remember you just joining OB. LSU mods on 3 are losing confidence. That shouldn't be a big surprise if Brazar, make sure I get that right, Brazar 10. I had Adam Gorney on from Rivals.com, national analyst, on Thursday on Chad and I's show, House Divided, here on Orangebloods Live from 12 to 3. By the way, give us some likes and subscribe to the channel. If you're catching us for the first time and you haven't subscribed to the channel, we just crossed 16,000, on the way to 1 billion. We're gonna be like McDonald's. Sorry, cracking myself up. And then like the channel. We do like those likes. We had Adam Gorney on Thursday, and he mentioned that LSU media were overconfident and that LSU coaches were optimistic. Felt like the media covering LSU with he's absolutely going to LSU, he's a lock, he's committed, future casts and crystal balls are coming in for LSU. Adam Gorney, who spoke with Colin Simmons on Thursday, said, I think the LSU media is overconfident. The difference is super confident versus optimistic. Now, that being said, on Thursday, Adam Gorney said if forced to pick between the two, he thought momentum was going the way of LSU, and that's where he would pick if he had to pick today, while acknowledging he might still pick Texas. But if an LSU mod on 3 is losing confidence, that means he's regressing to the mean. And look, what are we telling you today? Texas leads. That would go hand in hand, apparently, with what an LSU mod on 3 is thinking. But that jives with kind of everything that we've been talking about for the last few days. Because an on 3 mod for LSU, because his confidence is slipping, it doesn't mean that over the course of the next 5 days, the needle can't move enough and to such a degree that it would be LSU over Texas. But I think we're all on the same page to a certain extent, getting more so on the same page. Let's see, what else do we got here in the chat? I don't see anything in the super chat. So while you see me like picking through the comments to pick a question or comment, just know that you skip to the front of the pack when you do it. Super chat style. Let's see. What is this? My dog's barking in the background, wanting you to also participate in the super chat. You know, every time my dogs bark, an angel gets their wings. Anwar has the hat with the drunk uncle. You need a hat or a wild headpiece. Leather Texas helmet. Horns on a motorcycle helmet. Or something to give you some swag. I need a Viking hat for swag? I thought a lot of y'all's problems with me, and when I say y'all, I do not mean you, Strangman. Is that what that is? Stangman or Strangman? Sorry. Stangman, 1969. I tend to find out that a lot of people who don't like me, one of the reasons why they don't like me is they think that I have too much swag. Where's Jagmus at? That's funny. See if I can find that comment. It's weird because I have two different feeds of the chat, and so it can be a bit distracting trying to find it. Yes, Jagmus, you do have me going on here and Alex Dunlap on Sirius XM right now. He's doing his show. Do you know how I know that? Because I was on Slack an hour ago telling Alex he needed to answer a few questions on Orangebloods regarding his practice report. And he was like, I'll do it as soon as I'm off my Sirius show. So yes, those two things are happening at the same time. Let's see. Blake, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Corey says, what about Kobe Black? Kobe Black still should be considered, I think, Texas as a heavy favorite. Keep an eye on Texas A&M. They will make their presence felt before it's all said and done. That's going to be a heavy, heavy recruitment down the stretch. But right now, I think Texas is as in good a position without a commitment as they could probably be. I'm going back into the chat to make sure that I don't miss anything. Paxton says, do I question Bo Davis if he loses Colin Simmons? I actually don't. Bo Davis is about the 6th or 7th recruiter on this particular recruitment. I mean, you've got Sark, you've got I'm drawing a blank here for a second. I mean, you've got Jeff Banks. Sorry, for some reason, the man who shares my name, that name wasn't coming out of my head no matter what. You've got Jeff Banks, you've got Choate, you've got Kwiatkowski, you've got Bo Davis. There's a lot of people involved in this. In fact, Chris Gilbert heavily involved in this recruitment ahead of Bo Davis before Chris Gilbert left to take another job. So this is not on Bo Davis. I think it's fair to question Bo Davis's recruiting through year 2.5 at Texas, but no, I think it'd be absolutely wrong to think about placing blame on Bo Davis if Texas does it. And consequently, if Texas gets Colin Simmons, let's not anoint Bo Davis again. He's got a role in this, but he's way down the pecking order with regards to where either credit or blame would go. And if Texas doesn't get this kid, Colin Simmons, I haven't yet thought about how to place blame. Sometimes another school just beats you. And I know that in a world where we want to strangle somebody because they didn't close down a recruitment with a 5-star, I think this is an easy one to give credit if Texas gets him. If they don't, the stuff that I'm hearing does not lead back. I mean, I guess if you wanted to point the finger anywhere, maybe you would point at Kwiatkowski, because there is some concern about his defense and his ability to develop. He's not a guy that's had a lot of history with 5-stars. So if LSU comes to him and says he doesn't know what to do with a guy like you, there aren't many guys that Kwiatkowski's had over his career that he can say, yeah, no, I got a guy 5-star just like you, and he was an All-American, it was a first-round draft pick, and don't have to worry about that. So, but I hate to blame Kwiatkowski. And then if Texas gets Colin Simmons, not give Kwiatkowski a bunch of credit. Like, seems like a real unfair deal there where it's like, if this thing goes sideways, we're going to look at your defense and point at you. But if they get him, do we point at the defense and look at him? Just throwing that out there. Scotty B says, Bo is one of the best D-line coaches in the game. Scotty, I don't know if I agree. I mean, I like Bo Davis. I think he's a very good coach. Is he really one of the best D-line coaches in the game? Like, how are we measuring that? How are we quantifying that statement when we know that he's not really an elite recruiter? And from a developmental standpoint, did Keandre Coburn soar under Bo Davis's 2 years? Did Maro Ajomo become a completely different, like at some point we need to see a real Bo Davis impact. Murphy's been here 2 years. He is a really solid player, maybe even very good. Can Bo Davis get a guy who's a 3-star, at which point, even though Tom Herman is responsible for Murphy being on the Longhorn campus, if Bo Davis is able to develop a 3-star into something better, I think then maybe that statement becomes a little bit more true. I don't know how to rate Bo. And I'm not, Scotty, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that hasn't proven to be the case yet. But I tell you what, he's got a couple of guys this year that if they both earn all Big 12 honors, I think you'd have to and put themselves into the draftable area. And T'Vondre Sweat, I don't know how, at some point this will be year 3 for him under Bo Davis. At some point, you do have to give Bo Davis some credit for the development there. The way we would Kyle Flood with Christian Jones, right? This is year 3 for Christian Jones under Kyle Flood. And the feeling is, look at what Kyle Flood has done. Probably need to do that with those defensive line guys as well. Barron Sorrell, perfect example. If that guy turns into a first-team all Big 12 player this year, Scotty, I think then we're having that conversation in more clearer terms than we are at this exact point. Though to be fair, it's not like, Scotty, I have a list of 10 coaches that I would rank above him. I don't even have a list of 5. I mean, if you ask me the question, Catch, who would you rank ahead of Bo Davis? I would need to get off this show and go through some notes and spend like 3 hours looking at who's where and how they've recruited. And I don't know it. I don't know that off the top of my head, just full transparency. Let's see. I want to get into we'll get off of the Bo Davis conversation a little bit, mainly because Bo said this just real quick. River Oaks Art Society. It's a lot of letters in one word handle. It says the DL improved greatly last year. Did it improve? See, this is where when I said Shaka Smart was a damn good coach, everybody has a subjective interpretation of what damn good means. For me, it's like good, very good, damn good, great. And then whatever is above great, right? Some people hear damn good and they think damn good's actually better than great. When you said that the defensive line greatly improved, I think we're going to argue over the subjective definition of greatly. Better, yes. Greatly? Paxton, I don't know what you're talking about. Elite is better than great. Okay. I'm sorry. For a second there, I was like, damn, Paxton. He said it was great. Now you're saying it is elite. Where am I going to have to, pull out my eyebrows for a second? Let's go to a few team notes from last night while we do this. And look, we got 341 people that I see in the Restream chat right now. Give us a like on the video. I have not checked. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that right now. I had the video up earlier, and if you missed it, I had the audio up as well, which created an echo, which means that I pulled a Chad Hastings, because that's what happened with Chad earlier this week. From what I can tell, I've got 83 likes. All right, well, look, I'm not judging. I'm not telling you that I don't appreciate the 83 likes. Nate said we're at 77, and now we're at like 83. Yeah, let's get us over 100. I'm going to move on. I wanted to give you some notes from last night's practice, right? We're 3 days into practice. That means we're 20% of the way through the 15 practices that the team gets leading up to school starting and everything else. The number one note that jumped out to me, freshman wide receiver John Tate Cook, now running ahead of Isaiah Nayor at the Z receiver position. So first team, Xavier Worthy, who's been out of this world good. First couple of days, Isaiah Nayor, and then John Tate Cook. right? So you've got some people think Jonte Cook might be the best or second best or third best wide receiver on the team. And he's first couple of days running third team. Day 3, Jonte Cook ahead of Isaiah Nayor in the pecking order at Z receiver. Just something to keep an eye on. We're only 3 days in. That could flip today. That could flip tomorrow. But it flipped yesterday. And yesterday, Jonte Cook officially running with the 2s ahead of Isaiah Nayor. Speaking of the offensive depth chart, this to me tells a story that we need to just keep an eye on. Walk-on Patrick Boyuth. Am I saying that right? I think so. I don't know if it's Cajun. It could be Boyuth. Maybe that's it. Patrick Boyuth. He's running third team tight end behind Gunnar Helm, behind Jatavion Sanders. He's running third team tight end at the moment, ahead of Spencer Shannon and ahead of Will Randall, the former teammate of Arch Manning from Louisiana, right? So I have been a detractor of last year's tight end class of Spencer Shannon and Will Randall. It just they did not move the needle for me as prospects. Again, it's early. It's day 3. This could change by tomorrow or today, and suddenly one of these guys is running third team. But I would say there's a story to be told about the wide receiver position where you've got Jatavion Sanders and Gunnar Helm, and they are 2 completely different tight ends. I think Texas feels extremely confident in what they've got as a 1-2 punch at the tight end position. Beyond those guys, and if you are one of these guys like myself that believes Jatavion Sanders is going to be gone after this season, you need more than Gunnar Helm at the tight end position next year. And right now, the guy running directly behind him is walk-on Patrick Boyuth. So Spencer Shannon, Will Randall running 4th and 5th, or maybe just tied for 4th. A lot of work to be done there at the tight end position. But even yesterday at practice, you can see that tight end could be a position that the Longhorns will be looking hard in the portal for next year, excuse me. Another note from practice. And again, I'll get back to some of the comments, and a little disappointed no super chats today. I'm in here. It's a Saturday. My dogs want me to take them out in 103-degree weather. No super chat questions today makes Jack a dull boy. Cam Williams, sophomore offensive lineman, still working at second team left tackle. He had started out the way they had originally set it up on the first day of camp. He was at right tackle behind Christian Jones. The last 2 practices, Cam Williams has been working out at left tackle. I don't know whether that is a sign of how bad the left tackle situation potentially is behind Kelvin Banks, or is that a vote of confidence for where they think Cam Williams ultimately could end up long-term wise in his career? The idea that Cam Williams is even getting practice reps at left tackle, even with the second team. There are teams that recruited Cam Williams and teams that did not offer him scholarships that would looked at that and not have believed in a million years that Cam Williams might be able to pull that off. It kind of reminds me of a little bit of the questions that surrounded Kelvin Banks just a little bit at the end of his senior season when he goes to the All-America game and then struggles in practice that week at right tackle. He gets demoted by rivals to a high 4-star, and yet he comes in last year and he's a freak. You know, it's funny the way Kyle Flood's peeps oftentimes get questioned, and then Kyle Flood turns out to be right. Triple J or Triple Joseph or Triplet Joseph. I tried to bring you in. I don't know what happened. I'm telling you, the system is off a little bit. Texas must do whatever they can to get more to hold off if we want a chance at Colin. What did they do on that visit to get so much momentum? It was an unofficial visit. I agree. Forget about Colin Simmons for a second. They have to get DeCorian Moore next year. If we were ranking receiving prospects for the last 3 years, so that we included Jonte Cook, Ryan Niblett, all the guys in this year's class, Micah Hudson, whomever you want to throw in, if you think that some of these guys are in that category, in that breadth of like 5 stars, I'm ranking Moore ahead of all these dudes. This is 10, 500 meter speed as a junior, tremendous playmaker, dominant player at the – he's just – everything about DeCorian Moore is sensational. So they got to get him to hold off of an LSU commitment to get more. But I'm 100% with you, Joseph Triplett 44. I'll get that right there too. And yes, ahead of Evan Stewart as well, FYI. That would be going back, including a 4th class in that discussion. But yes, you ask me today, my gut instinct is that I'd have Moore ranked ahead of all of those guys. It'd be very close between Moore, Jonte Cook, and Evan Stewart. I mean, I have all of those guys rated as 5 stars, but that should give you an idea of the talent level that I have Moore with. And then, yeah, no, it's really bad for Texas, I think. It may be tough to overcome if they get both DeCorian Moore and Caden Durham. In a week from now, we may feel a certain kind of way about that. We'll be looking at it and go, we should have known, because some of this stuff does look scary on paper. I mean, again, if we were just hanging out at the bar, we were talking about this, there'd be a whole lot of, I don't know, man. They really going to get 2 guys from LSU and then their teammate go the other way? You'd question the stuff. Benny jumping into the super chat. Aside from a win at Bama, what would be an early season sign that the season is likely to meet expectations? Win your first couple of road games. Thinking about that Baylor game, maybe it's not early in the season because maybe beat Baylor. Maybe it's just as simple, Benny, as beat Baylor. Texas hasn't been great on the road, 3-6 under Sarkisian through 2 seasons, although they have a 2-game road winning streak. But that game just feels tricky to me. I have not come out and said outright that I think Texas will lose in Waco, but it's a tricky game. Baylor will be better this year. Texas oftentimes plays to the level of its opponent, which leads it to be in 50-50 games too many times. I mean, last year it was either 6 or 7 50-50 games on the schedule. It's too many if you want to be a great team. Because when you play 50-50 games, and by 50-50, I mean we're last 5 minutes of the game, and it can go either way. If you're Texas, you'd like to cut down on that number significantly, because then you give yourself margin of error to some degree. You're not asking to, if you're in 6 50-50 games, trying to win all 6 50-50 games is statistically a nightmare. It's not supposed to happen. It rarely does. Got to play in fewer 60-60 games. Let's see. We got a comment here from East 8th, which is, I believe, the first comment I've ever taken from East 8th. So what up, East 8th? I can't imagine that Colin's mom wants to move rather than keeping her life in Duncanville and being able to go to Austin for games. I feel like he'll decide based on her quality of life. Fair. I don't really disagree with that. I don't know what to say about Austin versus Baton Rouge, and I don't know what his mom specifically, what is she planning on moving? Would she move to Austin? Would this be like a Mary Redding situation when Corey Redding originally was a prospect? Had he gone to Arizona to play with his brother, would she have gone to Arizona? She moved to Austin. Some parents are going to uproot their lives if they have to be near their kids. And some people, you can't do that, right? Sometimes you're embedded. I've heard a lot about the family liking Baton Rouge. Austin is closer, and Austin is a fantastic city, right? So there are things that they have to consider. Ultimately, where I disagree, I mean, ultimately, this kid, Colin Simmons, is going to make a decision that is best for him, and he will weigh everything: his mom, his brother, NIL, NFL, Austin, Baton Rouge, teammates, culture, fit, girls, scholastics. I mean, there's a lot of stuff involved there. And ultimately, Colin Simmons has got to make the decision that's best for him. And none of us should really begrudge that. No matter what decision he makes, this kid's just trying to make the biggest early decision of his life. And it's not easy. And he loves both things. And choosing between two things that you love, oftentimes just pretty tricky. Rivers Oaks Art Society. I'm starting to pick up that username now that I've said it once. Nobody's mama should let their child choose LSU over Texas. Academically, Texas is ranked 58th in the world. LSU is ranked over 800. Austin is safer than Baton Rouge. There's no doubt about either of those things. But a place can be safer and you might not feel as comfortable there. It's weird. I mean, I can't speak for Colin Simmons. I can't speak for his family. I can tell you what I've heard and what's being discussed behind the scenes. But River Oaks Art Society, you make really good points. And I'm guessing if I'm the Texas coaching staff, like I'm hammering that home too. No, Austin, it's crazy. There aren't a lot of times Texas has the higher ground on the it's safer, right? Because it's a big city. It's a big city. We know that things can happen in Austin. And yet, and if we're comparing that to a smaller town, oftentimes, right? Think about in a head-to-head battle with Texas A&M. Texas A&M often, I can remember 20 years ago in the Jamie Hightower recruitment, an offensive lineman, 5 stars from Jacksonville. They won that kid over Texas by convincing the mom that Austin was hell, that this was real Sodom and Gomorrah type stuff where, you know, you send your kid down here and like he's going to be involved in orgies and getting arrested, end up in a gang, and he won't go to school because of the violence, and that one, it was like small town kid. He heard that and it absolutely impacted his decision. That kid picked Texas A&M at a time as a 5-star in the early 2000s when Texas was getting everybody else. And they did it because of that particular messaging. Texas has had to fend that off a lot over the last 2-3 decades, that don't send your kid to Austin. It's a big, bad, scary city. But you're right. In a competition heads up with Baton Rouge, it is safer. There suddenly the big city thing, well, you can compare it to Baton Rouge. Not that like Baton Rouge is Beirut, right? There aren't missiles going off. It's not like he has to worry about his house being bombed, but there are things in Baton Rouge that are problematic as well. And it is rare when Texas, I think, has the higher ground on this. Ooh, it's scary to live out there. Well, Baton Rouge is something you have to at least think about. And I think you framed it completely fair. River Oaks Art Society. I need to hang out with you, by the way, because I'm not in an art society. And it kind of feels like the kind of thing that I would enjoy. Rank my top 5 freshmen as of today in order. James, thank you for the super chat. Even that $2 helps us we're just a little squirrel trying to find an acorn out there in the forest. Thank you for your $2 acorn. Cook, Hill, Baxter, Muhammad, Niblett. Those will be my top 5 as of today. Did I forget anybody? Did I say Derek Williams? Derek Williams would probably be in the top 5. Maybe swap out Niblett for Derek Williams. Not Arch. Maybe not even Ryan Niblett yet, although his offseason and the month and a half before showing up for camp was so good. Maybe so. No offensive lineman, no defensive lineman. Yeah, I think that's who I think that's the group that I would go with. I think I see, where'd it go? By the way, I think my dogs are eating somebody in the house. Where did that go? Yeah. By the way, you've been good in the chat today. A hi. Apologies if I mispronounced that, but thank you for being in the chat. You've been a great contributor. Cook, Hill, Muhammad, Niblett. That's what I need to do. I need to see it written down, and then I need to look at it. I'll tell you what. Cook, Hill, Muhammad, Baxter, Williams. In that order. Niblett would be 6th, but I reserve the right to change my mind. Right now, Malik Muhammad, it's close. Blake, I see you trying to catch me. You're trying to catch me in like a gotcha moment. I think you could flip-flop those guys in any order. They're both running some with the 2s. Malik Muhammad's been on campus a little bit longer, so, and I read a report yesterday for part of practice. Williams, I can't even remember what he didn't do, but something happened in practice that allowed Alex Dunlap to call him mortal. So 3-4, call him 3.5 together. Paxton says, I agree, Paxton. I feel like we are missing someone. And I'm trying to figure out who it is that I'm not. It's not one of the offensive linemen. I think we're good. I like this. According to Kylie, we're just more robust and the ceiling is high. I totally agree with you. Blake says Vasic's not ready yet. Blake, you shouldn't be. Don't you have producing to do? You are trying to catch me in a trap. Yeah, I see what you're doing. But Vasic not quite ready. Paxton says DeAndre Moore. Moore's close. I mean, if we extended this thing out to a top 10, DeAndre Moore is definitely in it. Samaje Burrell might be in it. I know Burrell has really impressed Alex Dunlap through the first couple of days. FBG Son says that I forgot Warren Roberson. He could be in the conversation. It says a lot about this freshman class that I'm not sure that Roberson makes the 10. He could. Some of this stuff 3 days in is splitting hairs. East 8th says Sadir Mitchell. Now, you know what's interesting, East 8th, about Sadir Mitchell? My sources on Sadir Mitchell were really not happy. I get the sense that there's been some talk about Savion Red being in the doghouse. I get the sense that Sadir Mitchell was in the doghouse this summer. And so much so that there was some thought that if he didn't get his act together, maybe this would be one and done for Sadir Mitchell at Texas. Now, seeing him at practice, getting into some run with the second team defensive line, it makes me think, okay, maybe he's stepped it up. But I know a couple of weeks ago there was some real question marks. This is a really good call. No Elmo 2000. Jelani McDonald needs to be he probably needs to be in the top 10. So thank you. I wouldn't put him in the top 5 yet. He certainly has that kind of upside. But if we were doing a top 10, yeah, I'll have Jelani McDonald in my top 10. All right, we're going to wrap this bad boy up. I'm going to give all of you like 60 seconds. You can get your super chat in if you have a super chat. Like the video and there you go. See, Blake, that's you producing there. That's you doing the job. You're like, what about you? Try to get me in that gotcha moment where it's like he likes him more than Derek Williams. Don't stir up trouble for me. Sometimes I'm just see Blake. Look at Blake, really cocky, isn't he? Oh, I can do both. Okay, probably true. I'll tell you what, you've been so good today. Barring a super chat donation, this will be our last question for today's show. Why are you more confident today versus a few days ago about Simmons to Texas? given the possible pending more commitment to LSU? I think it's just a couple of days ago. I think there was a little bit about midday on Thursday. I'd say that my best source on Colin Simmons was a little more antsy than he is 48 hours later. So while 48 hours later, he still acknowledges, I guess I shouldn't say he, they. Well, it's possible. Maybe my best source just happens to be a woman. Wouldn't that freak all of you out who only think it could be men? He is not, that source is not as edgy today. And Shook, I see you. I'll get your super chat here in just a second. The anxiousness that existed 48 hours ago doesn't exist this morning, I don't think, which makes me a little more confident, even if there's still an ominous vibe. I hope all that makes sense. Like, you asked me a question I hadn't completely thought of in terms of why I might feel the way that I feel. So that was me trying to work it out. But I think it really does. There's a more pragmatic, straightforward line of discussion about what's happening. And it's less like, oh my God, we don't know, if that helps at all. All right, last question, super chat. Using a scale of 1 to 10, what would be your shock level if JT Sanders is a better NFL player than Bowers? Brock Bowers from Georgia. 3? You know, once you get into the NFL, man, like all kinds of things can happen. Brock Bowers is bigger. He's probably a more dynamic overall athlete against a guy in Sanders who himself is a pretty electric all-around athlete. But if you ask me what are the, I mean, it's certainly on the table. I don't think I'd be shocked at all. Do I think Bowers is going to be an excellent NFL player? I do. Do I think he probably ends up being a better NFL player than JT Sanders? Probably. I don't know that I would go that far, but maybe, likely. I don't know. Like, I don't know what word to use that, but because I think both of them have a chance to be Pro Bowl, all-pro level talents at the next level. It could be that neither of them end up being that good. I mean, once you get to the NFL, man, injuries kick in, all kinds of things. Your system, your quarterback, a lot of the things that would either make these guys good or great is out of their control. But on a 1 to 10 scale, my shock level would be low. I think the world of JT Sanders. And on that note, guys, I'm looking at the conversation in the chat regarding JT and Bowers and everybody. I mean, again, you guys are arguing about it. They're both badasses. They're both incredible prospects. And John Johnson's probably right about this. There's not really an offense that will run through him in the NFL like they probably do at Georgia. That's fair. All right. On that note, guys, we did like 53 minutes. We were going to do 30. And then I just kept going. The questions were great. You guys are hanging out. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I might be back tomorrow. I don't know. Like, tomorrow's my 10 thoughts from the weekend days. So a lot of times I'm just busy writing. But if events warrant a Sunday show, I'll certainly think about it. Otherwise, we'll be back Monday, 8 a.m. on Orangebloods Live. Anwar Richardson doing the old-fashioned. I'll be back with Chad at noon to do House Divided, and Rod Babers in the Rodcast at 3 from 3 to 6. 9 hours live all day long on Monday. We will do 45 live hours of content this upcoming week at a minimum. At a minimum. So we feel like we're taking the coverage and the demands and the expectations for you guys, for us, to next level territory. Thanks for hanging out with us, riding shotgun on this adventure with us. We'll see you on Monday. Do those things written at the bottom of the screen. Have a great rest of the weekend. Hug somebody. Tell them you love them. We'll talk to you.